Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Just on August 8th, Kove dropped a total price bombshell in the middleweight adventure touring segment. The bike they just unveiled is the hardcore version of their 800X. And man, the number on that price tag immediately had a lot of prospective buyers reaching for their wallets. But this isn't just a budget play. Honestly, in my opinion, this bike genuinely earns that hardcore badge. Before we dive into the spec sheet, let's take a look at what this bike actually brings to the table. At its heart is a liquid-cooled 799cc parallel twin, pumping out around 95 horsepower and 80 Newton meters of peak torque. What's interesting isn't just the output, but where that torque sits. It hits full force at 7,500 RPM in the real world. That means you've got power right on tap when you're tackling steep climbs or picking your way out of sticky off-road spots. Then there's one spec that might just be the biggest game changer. Kove claims a curb weight of just 194 kilograms. For context, rivals in the same class, like the CFMOTO 800MT Explore, tip the scales at around 231 kilograms. That's a massive difference of over 30 kilos. Trust me, that's something you'll definitely feel when you're doing low-speed maneuvers in deep mud or trying to U-turn on a tight single track. As for the chassis and suspension setup, Kove clearly isn't messing around. You get fully adjustable KYB suspension front and rear, offering 240mm of travel up front and 230 out back. Ground clearance sits at a generous 265mm, paired with a proper off-road wheel setup, 21 inches up front, 18 in the rear, wrapped in Pirelli Scorpion rubber. That's a combination you usually only see on bikes with a much higher price tag. Before we go any further, let's take a step back and look at where this bike comes from. Kove isn't a new player in the 800cc arena. They already have a few 800X variants selling globally, each with its own distinct flavor. There's the 800X Pro, which is the all-rounder of the group, perfect for daily commuting with the occasional dirt trail. Then there's the X Touring, built more for long-distance comfort with a road-focused 19-inch front and 17-inch rear setup, plus a lower seat height. And finally, the XGT, a version tailored more for the European market, featuring a larger fuel tank and touring creature comforts like standard cruise control. But out of all those variants, the one you're probably most familiar with. And the one that really defines Kove's DNA in this class is the 800X Rally. It was marketed as the lightest, most aggressive machine in the 800X lineup, with a claimed dry weight under 165 kilograms, way lighter than the average ADV in its class. The philosophy was simple, an adventure bike built to actually go fast in the dirt. And honestly, if I'm being real with you, it stripped away most modern bells and whistles, ditching premium material finishes just to stay as lightweight as possible for when you want to catch some air. Now, this newly released hardcore edition feels like Kove took that pure X rally philosophy and, added a bit more seasoning. At a claimed 194 kilos curb weight. Okay, it's not quite as featherlight as the Rally, but it's still significantly lighter than its direct rivals. The key difference, the hardcore comes straight from the factory loaded with a much more comprehensive electronics and comfort package. If the Rally was for riders who wanted minimum weight with zero fluff, the hardcore is Kove's answer for those who want that same off-road capability without sacrificing modern tech and comfort. And that tech list is pretty extensive. You get ride-by-wire with 5 riding modes, a bi-directional quick shifter, cruise control, traction control, and switchable ABS for off-road use. Both the grips and the seats, front and rear are heated. Add to that a tire pressure monitoring system, a 7-inch instrument cluster, a built-in dash cam, and T-Box connectivity. On top of all that, factory-installed crash bars, handguards, and a skid plate mean you won't need to spend extra cash on basic protection right out of the showroom. One thing worth keeping in mind is the seat height, which sits at 875mm. Kove does offer an optional modular seat that adjusts to either 845 or 900mm, but if you're on the shorter side, swinging a leg over one at the dealership first would definitely be a wise move. Now, let's talk market positioning. Over in the US, Kove already sells the 800X lineup across a pretty wide price spectrum. The X Pro comes in right around $11,000, while the flagship lightweight X Rally sits closer to $13,000. If we look at their domestic market pricing, this new hardcore version actually launched cheaper than the Rally, 42,800 compared to 49,800 yuan, making it about 14% more affordable. If we use that same ratio as a rough guide, for the US market, the hardcore could theoretically land right around the $11,000 mark, slightly below the Rally, but, well, likely still above the Pro. Mind you, this is purely an estimate based on domestic pricing ratios, not official numbers. Over in Europe, the main target remains CFMOTO's MT lineup. In Germany, for instance, their top-spec 800 ES with semi-active electronic suspension runs around 11,000 euros, while even the simpler MTX sits near the 9,000 euro mark. Meanwhile, the 800X Rally already retails in Germany for around 9,900 euros. What this means is that if Kove brings this hardcore edition to Europe at that estimated price point, it could be one of the most competitive options in its class, potentially undercutting even the MTX. And that's with high-end features like a bi-directional quick shifter, cruise control, and fully adjustable suspension that you normally only find on top-tier European bikes. Kove isn't trying to race to the absolute bottom on price, nor are they trying to copy the luxury aesthetic of their rivals. Instead, they're doubling down on a lightweight package loaded with factory kit, an approach aimed squarely at riders who genuinely intend to take their bikes down tough trails, but now without giving up high-tech features. Design-wise, the bike gets a fresh look with a Spartan-style front beak and lens-type LED headlights available in two colorways, black and white. Combined with the spec sheet, the 800X Hardcore feels like a machine engineered for a very specific type of rider, rather than trying to, appeal to a broader audience of casual buyers, much like they did with the Rally. But speaking of colors, I'm personally not a huge fan of that white option. I mean, it looks remarkably close to something straight out of BMW's lineup, even down to the font choice on the graphics. Kove should have just stuck with the colorway they used on the X Rally. And that pretty much wraps up our look at the Kove 800X Hardcore Edition. I think that covers just about everything you need to know. What do you guys think? With specs and pricing like this, is this bike going to be a serious threat to the competition? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video.